Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Betting Pros podcast brought to you by BetMGM. I am your host, Dan Harris. That's Pat Fitzmaurice. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Harris80. You can find Pat on Twitter at Fitz_FF. It is time to talk about our best bets for week 12 of the NFL season. We are live streaming this right now on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/bettingpros. Pat, it's almost Thanksgiving. Are you ready for the big holiday or what?
I am, Dan. I'm always ready for Thanksgiving. And what an underrated week of sports Thanksgiving week is. I mean, you start the early part of the week with some really interesting, fun college basketball tournaments. You get the NFL triple header on Thursday. You get great college football rivalries on Saturday, and then more NFL on Sunday. So I think it's just a dream sports week. Loving every minute of it right now.
Yeah, well, we need, the NFL Thursday on this one isn't exactly lighting, the room on fire with this. The games are not that exciting, especially the first one. I mean, the Bears and the Lions, just not what we want. But I understand you may be making some picks here on some of our Thursday games, which is great. And we're going to do some player props. Part of the reason we can't do player props, obviously, on this show is because, for the most part, they're not out at the time we do it. But right now, we are going to be able to do it because there are enough props out now because it's Thanksgiving. That's why we are live streaming this again on our YouTube channel. So if you're I see some people chatting already, people waiting for the garage door to open, which is great. It will be opening. I absolutely promise you. My wife has an appointment in about 20 minutes. So it will get there. Nobody worry about that. But in the meantime, let's go through both our latest offer from our sponsor, BetMGM. We'll recap last week, and then we'll do the usual show, giving our three best bets for the weekend, or in this case, some on Thanksgiving, if either one of us has any picks for that. And then we'll do some player props here for Thanksgiving. And again, Pat and I, as in addition to being betting guys, are also both fantasy guys, and not to toot our own horns, but we're fairly accurate with our fantasy rankings over the last several years. And part of that leads into player props. So we'll get there. And again, if you have questions and you're here joining us, and I see that somebody asking about Cole Kmet receiving yards prop, we'll talk about those as we get there. And over under on garage door, taking over on 1.5. That's a good bet. That's your best prop bet, obviously, of the weekend. All right, let me get into our latest offer here from our sponsor, BetMGM, before we get into the show. New customers can bet $10 and win $200 if your team scores a touchdown with the code Juice100. Again, Daily Juice Podcast. That's our sister podcast, daily, hosted by Matt Peralt. It's great. 15 minutes every single morning. Matt does it. Doesn't matter where he is. He could be on a plane. He's been in the hospital. He just does it, guaranteed. So again, that's code Juice100 over at BetMGM. For new customers, bet $10, win $200 if the team you bet on scores a touchdown. That's available in New Jersey, Colorado, Indiana, West Virginia, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Virginia, Iowa, Washington, D.C., Arizona, and Wyoming. All right, let's quickly recap last week. Our guest, Mike Randall, Pat and I, we were just talking about how much we love Mike and how great he is at the college basketball stuff. But he did go just 1-2 last week. He did hit on the Vikings, getting 2.5 in that matchup against the Packers, but he missed on the Seahawks, getting 3. The Seahawks continue to be just our kryptonite on this podcast. And he also had Carolina laying 3.5, and they, of course, lost outright. I went 2-1. I hit on the Chiefs laying 2.5 to the Cowboys, which was our Betting Pros pick of the day for Sunday, and the Texans getting 10 from the Titans. I did miss on the Raiders getting 1 from the Bengals. That puts me at 18-15 on the week. On the year, pardon me, not on the week. That would be a big week for me. All right. Remember, we have consensus lines over at bettingpros.com. I will mention the different books that are available. They are moving these lines, Pat, including the Thanksgiving lines when I looked at them just yesterday before preparing for this show. Again, you can make picks in our Betting Pros app, which you should download. You can make your own picks against the spread. You can see where you stand on a leaderboard and all of that. Pat, you are the guest on this show. I give you the honor of making your first pick here. What's your, what do you want to say, your best bet of the weekend? However you want to put it out there. But what's your number one pick?
Yeah, so let's start with that aforementioned Bears-Lions game, Dan. I mean, what a great matchup. You've got to bet it pretty much because you're not watching it for the outstanding football.
It's true.
Indeed. So I really like the Lions getting 3 points at home here. For one, I just have a policy. I would never bet against the Lions on a Thanksgiving Day game at home. I'm either taking the points they're inevitably getting or I'm just laying off. But this time I think I want those points. And it kind of comes down to, well, number one, I don't think the Lions are that much worse than the Bears this year. And number two, I mean, I think it's the coaching situations. You've got the volatility of the Matt Nagy situation in Chicago, with him being a lame duck, a lame turkey, if you will, on Thanksgiving. And, in Detroit, I think they have some esprit de corps with, with Campbell. Like, everyone loves Dan Campbell. So, I think they're going to be fired up to try to go out and get their first win of the season on Thanksgiving Day in Detroit. And, I like getting a few points here. So I'm taking Detroit in the 3. That's one of my best bets for this week.
Are you assuming with the bet, or does it matter to you who starts a quarterback here for the Lions? Because of course now there's some optimism, at least expressed by Dan Campbell, that Jared Goff is going to be able to go in this game, and it's not going to be Tim Boyle. Doesn't matter to you at all.
No, and on either side it wouldn't. I mean, to me, like Dalton versus Fields, Boyle versus Goff, neither one moves the needle one way or the other in this one, I don't think.
All right. Well, it does sound like it is going to be Dalton. I think Matt Nagy came out. Yeah. Of course, you referenced that there are reports that Nagy is going to be fired immediately after the game, which he denies that he was not informed that he was going to be fired. But we'll see. Yeah, this is a tough one for me, Pat. It was 3.5 for a while, and when it opened at 3.5, I don't know if the movement to 3 is because of money coming in here on the Lions or because of the fact that Jared Goff could start and people think that that's better for the Lions. Either way, I don't really have a great feel for it necessarily. I'll be involved in this game probably from a props perspective, which again we'll talk about in a little bit later here. But I like the boldness of making one of your best bets not only on the Lions but also on Thanksgiving. So we're going to know how your week's going right off the bat, Pat. Like, no fear whatsoever. You don't want to punt until Monday night. That's my philosophy. Like, let's wait until the week's almost over. But yeah, I'll just being honest, I don't have a good feel for it. Like, I'm not betting it one way or another. I'd love to see the Lions win. I'd love to see them cover. But I can't back them, man. I can't back them. Even with last question, I guess. Do you think, because we've seen coaching sort of stuff, as much as he's lost the locker room and everything like that, but we've seen coaching stuff go the other way a little bit, like people in turmoil, and then they kind of rally and then they play better. Are you putting anything into the coaching situation basically in this game for the Bears?
So yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of it comes from. I know the Raiders sort of crossed us up with that. Like the more, the more turmoil the Raiders have, the better they seem to play this year, at least as far as the coaching goes. So no, I mean, I do think it kind of matters that, for one, like I think the Campbell's a player's coach, the players like him. For another, I don't think he's an idiot. He's not a Wayne Fonts. He's actually a decent head coach. I know. I used to love Wayne, and nothing entertained my stepdad as much as like watching Wayne Fonts coach on Thanksgiving Day and make jokes about him. So I do miss Wayne, but just like it seems like when you're getting these reports about the divided locker room for the Bears and how some of these players are just like actively stabbing him in the back and telling reporters that there's a sizable player population in that locker room that wants him gone. Like, that's not a good thing. And like, are they going to go out and play for that guy on a holiday? I would not be surprised if the Bears came out pretty flat for this one.
Yeah, and I do think that it's a little different than Gruden, which, obviously Gruden's situation didn't have anything to do with the locker room at that time, and him being gone and that first came back, that might have been a relief, right, for them. In this one, you have the reports that the players are actively basically being like, you have lost the locker room, I'm done. And so that is really tough there to go. But it is a stay away for me. We'll get to some props, a couple of them that I might like in that one. But it's stay away. You're a brave man. I love going in on the Lions for one of your best bets. I am going to take it. I won't say an equally disappointing team, but a team that it's very difficult to get a read on. But I like the spot for them. If you've listened to this podcast, it is the Steelers on the road in Cincinnati, getting 4.5 here against the Bengals. Now, here's what I'm going to say. I would bet this now if you were listening to this, because I do think from everything I'm reading that the big three defensive players that the Steelers were missing last week, TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, and Joe Hayden. It sounds like they're all going to come back here. And if they do, if they get through practice and they all come back, this line's going to drop a little bit. So this is, for me, a prime teaser piece, Pat. I wanted to bet it last night for the Steelers. I mentioned this on the Monday show. I wanted to bet it last night and tease it up. But DraftKings was the lone book sitting out there at 4. Every other book was 4.5. DraftKings sat out there at 4. When I woke up this morning, it was at 4.5, so I did it. I teased it up, and I messaged you this morning. I said, Pat, I need the second teaser piece because I can't necessarily get there, and we did come up with a few. But bet it at 4.5 if you like the Steelers, like I do. I said last week that I was fading the Bengals, Pat, against the Raiders. That didn't work out very well for me. As I said, I did lose that bet, but I'm putting that a little bit more on the Raiders than I am on the Bengals. I mean, I can't buy the Bengals. Pat, I look at just total DVOA, and I know Matt Peralta always teases me because I love DVOA and I look at it closely and stuff like that, but just it's a good measure of how good a team actually is, in my opinion. And Cincinnati's 21st, Pittsburgh's 22nd. It's two pretty evenly matched teams. And you look at the weighted DVOA, Pat, that's more recent games sort of in there. Pittsburgh 20th, Cincy 24th. Again, with Pittsburgh now getting healthy on defense, I think it's a different game. I think a divisional game, it's generally pretty close. And again, I'm a broken record here, Pat, but the history shows us there are spots to back Mike Tomlin. There are spots to fade Mike Tomlin. This is a back Mike Tomlin spot for 2 reasons. Garage door, number 1, there we are. It always comes in. I promise you. I knew she had an appointment, everybody. It's really miraculous. Anytime my podcasts are live streamed, she has a tendency to figure out when it is. Anyway, just go here with the Mike Tomlin-led Steelers, okay? Knocks you out of your survivor pool every single time. They could be a double-digit favorite. They are going to lose that game, but he is the best rah-rah coach in the game. And even this year, they're 4-1 as underdogs. They're 3-1 as underdogs by more than 3 points. And remember, Pat, and I don't think we can discount this, Cincinnati went up to Pittsburgh early on in the year and spanked them a little bit, right? I mean, they won 24-10. They were embarrassed by that. And since he did some chirping afterwards, and you know that Mike Tomlin is going to remind his guys of that. Ben's playing a little better. You know, I was surprised actually at how decent he looked in that game coming off COVID. But he's playing a little better. The defense really is what's going to make the difference. It's a fate of the Bengals. It's a divisional game. If anything, I think Cincinnati wins this by 3 points, but I wouldn't mind taking the money line here on the Steelers. So that's where I am. I'm going with them getting 4.5 points here on the road in Cincinnati.
Yeah, you're selling me, Dan. I mean, you and Randall kind of sold me last week about the setups for Pittsburgh. Like, take them as a dog, fade them as a heavy favorites. And I took your advice last week against the Chargers, and luckily the back door was open in that game.
Yep.
I mean, hell, they almost won it outright at the end. So I'm kind of on board with you, and you make a really good point about the Steelers defense getting healthier. TJ Watt playing obviously would make a
difference
world
maker.
Yes,
difference
for
maker.
sure.
Yes.
And like we have seen, Burrow kind of struggle against pressure, I would say, at times so far.
Correct.
Like if he is a clean pocket, he's fantastic. But
Yes.
if he's under a heavy pass rush, like you can disrupt him and force him into some mistakes. So and TJ Watts, you're not going to have a clean pocket all day if that dude's playing. So
right. And again, there are question marks at it because secret, the books know more than I do. Of course, they get advanced sort of notice. So it is up in the air, to be careful. But everything I'm reading, and again, Pat, I feel like you and I probably at this point, because we've been doing this for a while, like we have minor people that we know and trust who sort of, can lean us in the right direction as to what they're thinking necessarily about injuries and things like that. And everything I've seen from people who I trust suggests that they think they're going to get all 3 of these guys back right now. And it's just, to me, it's a completely different, in a game, by the way, both teams have to win. But whatever is, the defense is fine for Cincy. I think it played a little bit over its head early in the year. The offense, man, I don't know. Like it doesn't look cohesive right now, like whatever they're doing on offense. And again, they beat the Raiders pretty handily in this one. But again, that's more of a fate of the Raiders. But I think the Steelers win this game outright. Really, I honestly do. So I'm going to sprinkle on the money line, as you should with all sort of, short dogs here. But again, this is a spot, man. I'm telling you, this is a bet that I really like this week, Pat. And especially at 4.5, which is why I'm doing it. It's in every teaser piece. Because if they lose by more than 10.5, I have to rethink my entire outlook here on the Steelers and the Bengals. So I can't see them losing by that much. So tease them up, find another piece, maybe one of our Thanksgiving games, which we'll talk about, I think, in a second. Pat, you're going back to Thanksgiving for pick number 2. Is that right?
I am, Dan. And first, as an aside, so my dog is very contentedly gnawing on a bone next to me because my wife is away and she can't be watching him. I've got to have him here with me. So if people hear that, that's what it is. But I don't know if my dog loves this basted bone as much as I love the under in the Dallas Raiders game.
Nice.
Which is at a last time I checked, I think it was
I got it.
51.
So it's 51 at some books, but our consensus line, again, at BettingPros, that's what we do. We have, I don't know, 12, 15 books here that we look at everything. It's technically 50.5, Pat. So if that changes anything, let me know. But
it won't change anything, Dan. And I think it was actually at 51.5 on DraftKings yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe there are some other people who are thinking the same.
People are with you, Pat. It's 50.5 at DraftKings. So I know, Pat, because spoiler alert, it's part of a teaser, but go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, looking at Dallas in their last 4 games, they have been 20 points or less in 3 of the 4, the only exception being their 43-3 pasting of the Falcons. The Raiders have scored 16 points or fewer in 3 straight. Like the Raiders, as you mentioned a second ago, have just been on kind of a downward trajectory. Maybe they are starting to feel the effects of John Gruden not being there calling plays. The offense just hasn't seemed quite as functional. And Dallas, I mean, we know they're going to be missing their top 2 wide receivers, which is, I guess technically
we
don't
we know that,
about
Pat, right? Because we
don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so we don't know about CeeDee Lamb yet. Like it's very rare, as some of my injury people have pointed out, for a concussed player to get cleared. Someone who was hurt on a Sunday to get cleared for a Thursday, it's pretty rare. So I think Lamb is going to be out for this one. I think it's going to be not a shootout. And, maybe there are going to be some points put up. Dak Prescott is certainly still capable. I think that the Cowboys will be able to do business on the ground against the Raiders, as most teams are. But I think the Raiders might struggle to move the ball in this one. And, like any total 50 or higher just seems like a stretch in this game. So I'm hitting the under pretty hard here.
We joked about it, Pat, last week. It was Chris Raybon, right? Friend of the show, both the Betting Pros and Fantasy Pros side, who had tweeted out that I don't understand why everybody hates unders so much. Unders are, you're winning right from the time the game starts. Like that's something that's true. I agree. I mean, people like to root for something, not against something. But had you not taken this, and had I not been such a coward, I probably would also have sort of taken this as one of my best bets. Yeah, this is a game that screams under to me, like absolutely screams it. I agree. I'm not expecting CeeDee Lamb to play. Now, there's been the positive sort of discussions here about the fact that, like, oh, he's in meetings, he's trending in the right direction. Mike McCarthy is optimistic. Yeah, he can't clear it that quickly. Like, I'll just be absolutely shocked here. And that's a huge deal for this offense. Like, you're down Amari Cooper, you're down CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and Cedric Wilson, right? I know Dalton Schultz and everything like that, but yeah, that's going to be tough. You assume they're going to rely on the ground game here a lot because they should win this game pretty handily. And again, they're 7.5 point favorites, I think. And the Raiders offense, Pat, I don't know why. I mean, you see it since they've lost Henry Ruggs, like without somebody stretching the field and opening it up underneath, they're just unable to really, move the ball cohesively each and every week. So they're just struggling. Maybe that changes right now. Maybe they finally get, Deshaun Jackson involved. But, absent that, it is tough to see them putting up too many points. I love it. We talked about it. I said, Pat, give me the teaser piece. And you were like, I love the under. So it is partially what I've done. And actually, it's not one of our best bets, Pat, but I'm wondering what you think of the spread because it's 7.5. That's too much for me. But I did do a same game teaser here where I teased the total up to 56.5. And I'm taking the under. And then I tease Dallas down. It's hard for me to see with or without CeeDee Lamb. It's really hard for me to see Dallas losing this game at home on Thanksgiving, where they're now being a little pressured here by the Eagles. They've got to come out with it. So I tease them down to 1.5. What do you think about that, out of curiosity, about that 2-team teaser?
I like teasing it down. I agree. I have a hard time seeing Dallas dump one to a reeling Raiders team at home on Thanksgiving. It just doesn't seem like something that could happen. I think it's a little too tall to bet it as is. It's probably just going to be a stay away from me. Because I think the perception, and maybe this leads to the high total, is that, normally we can count on the Raiders defense being hot garbage juice. And that really hasn't been the case this year. I mean, they're not great against the run, but they've been pretty good against the pass. I mean, they've got Max Crosby playing like a young JJ Watt at left end. So, and they can actually cover a little bit. So that's part of why I think the total is so high, and maybe part of why I think the spread is so high. I don't know. It's just hard to get a read on how spunky the Raiders are going to be for this one, because they are going in the wrong direction for sure. I don't think they're a horrible team, but right now it's just the trend for them is downward. And I don't know. I just can't get on either side of this one at the line. But if you tease it down, I like that. I do like it teased down to just Cowboys win, basically.
And I think further to your point on the total, by the way, is the fact that, like, what did we see last week? We saw Joe Mixon with, 30 rush attempts, and I think you've got both backs here, and spoiler alert, I may be going there for one of my props. That's something that I think you're going to see again. I think you're going to see a lot of running the ball. Running bleeds the clock, leads to more under. So yeah, I like it. I know nobody wants to root against scoring on Thanksgiving, but I do like that one for sure, Pat. Not the first one on the Bears lines, I'm a little lukewarm on, but that one I am higher on. So for my second bet, Pat, I was actually going to take the Broncos getting 3 from the Chargers, but it moved to 2 at 3, but it moved to 2.5. I don't like it that much. I do think this is a little bit of a letdown spot here for the Chargers after that big win, and you've got the Broncos at home off a bye. But again, at 2.5, I don't like it as much. So I'm going to a much, much uglier game, and I'm going to bet against my own team, the Jets, and I'm going to take the Texans, who are now under a field goal. It was a field goal earlier, but it's now 2.5 on the consensus lines over at bettingpros.com to the Jets in Houston. Pat, once Zach Wilson was named the starter, I like this a little bit, and you put aside what you think of Wilson, generally speaking. Okay. Bottom line is that we have seen quarterbacks come back from a long layoff and just experience rust. And I think you're going to see that from Wilson here, like regardless of how good he is this year or what he's going to be doing. I think he's going to be rusty in this game. And I think the Jets are going to struggle to put up points. There's no Michael Carter in this game. That does hurt. He was obviously a huge point of sort of emphasis of this offense. The Jets are 31st in overall DVOA. The Texans are at home. I realize, like, you could say it's the matchups, and last week the Titans had injuries and the weather was bad, but they now have 6 sacks and 10 turnovers in their last 2 games. The defense playing a little bit better. I think Tyrod Taylor is at least going to play it safe. The Jets have covered the spread twice this season, Pat. Neither times on the road. The Texans are actually 3-1 against the spread at home. The Jets defense, which was once sort of like hanging in there, I'll say generously, Pat, in the beginning of the season, they are no longer hanging in there. They are just kind of, whatever. So I think the Texans win this game if it's under a field goal. God, so gross. And I can't believe that this wound up being one of the bets that I wanted to take. Pat is leaving the show. It's all right on the live stream. He's very concerned about his dog, everyone. He's very, very worried about it. It's all right, Pat. I'm teasing you about the fact that you're so concerned about your dog and any noise that you hear from your dog that you just left the show in the middle of my rant. But that's fine. It's okay. So I am taking the Texans 2.5. Go ahead. What's going on with the dog, Pat? What do you have?
Oh, well, he got the bone next to a plastic Nerf gun launcher. So that was going to make some more substantial noise than just gnawing. So I had to move the Nerf gun.
It's fair point. It's a fair point. So, Pat, Texans laying 2.5 against the Jets.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dan, on the quarterback thing is a big thing. I mean, it's like basically starting anew for Zach Wilson after the long layoff. And yeah, I mean, a quarterback, we have seen it before. Russell Wilson. Look at how he's struggled in his first 2 games back, and not as long a layoff either. Or is it about the same? I can't remember.
About the same.
Yeah. So I agree with you. And I think the Houston defense is actually a little bit better than people maybe give them credit for. The one wild card here I think that could hurt you is if Tyrod Taylor throws 3 interceptions. Like that's the one possibility. But if I was betting, if it was a prop bet on interceptions, Wilson versus Taylor, I would definitely be betting Wilson with more interceptions in this game.
Yeah.
So,
and again, we saw Taylor, by the way, in that first game back after his long layoff against Miami, look absolutely terrible, right? And that's it. And he looked at least a little more competent last week. And he has the rushing ability, which can extend drives and everything like that. So again, I think they can play conservatively here. They can beat the Jets pretty easily with Zach Wilson under center. Hope I'm wrong from a personal perspective, so I can just enjoy, watching the Jets maybe squeak out one of their, 3 or 4 victories on the year. But I do think the Texans at home with Wilson's first game back cover this short spread. So I will take it with them laying 2.5. Again, it's been bouncing back and forth between 3 and 2.5. So if I see it at 2.5, that's when I would strike. If it's at 3, I'm going to stay away. Last bet, Pat, what do you got?
Okay, so I've got the Rams +1 against my beloved Green Bay Packers, Dan. And it's just, it's so injury related, this one. The Packers are just like decimated now, and they keep adding names to the list, unfortunately. Like all these, not just like regular starters, like blue chip guys. Elgton Jenkins is a big one because they are already without David Bakhtiari. We found out this week that Bakhtiari had undergone an initial cleanup surgery, which is why his return has been delayed. And I mean, he did tear his ACL last New Year's Eve day, I think. So maybe not a surprise that it's taken him so long. But man, without Jenkins and Bakhtiari, like the two anchors of, maybe the best left side of an offensive line in football. Rashawn Gary, not sure about his status. He hyperextended his elbow against 2 weeks ago, did not play last week in the loss to the Vikings. And that's huge because he has turned into, one of the premier defensive players in the league. And Aaron Jones remains out too. So not as big a deal. I mean, AJ Dillon is terrific, but boy, they're just so undermanned. And then you've got the Rams coming in fresh. I think it's going to be really hard for the Packers to win that game. I know they're undefeated in Lambeau this year, but give me the money line bet, I think, rather than the 1 point.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
I'll always take the money line over the 1 point.
Well, you might as well. I mean, unless
exactly.
there was a tie. There was a tie, obviously, with the Steelers and the Lions. Yeah, the money line is, -110 anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I agree with you on this one. Again, the offensive line injuries for the Packers, just really tough to overcome at this point. And you have a limited Aaron Rodgers, who, he's fantastic, and he threw for over 300 yards and 4 touchdown passes in those last game. But still, against that defense, you've got Von Miller now fully sort of, ready to go and integrated. You've got OBJ now sort of, another week to sort of get acclimated to the offense. Yeah, I agree with you. I do think the Rams win this game. One of my favorite bets. Another one that I teased up. I'd love for it to get to 1.5 so I can get it over 7.5. But I'll take them at 7 because I do think that, worst case scenario, the Packers eke out a squeaker here. But I like the Rams to win this game. So I am backing you as well on that one, and I will trail you. I'm going to take a total here for my last bet. It's the Titans and the Patriots under 44. You've just got two really solid defenses here in this game. The Titans are 12th in defensive DVOA. I don't know when that happened, right? Their defense was kind of something that we felt like we could pick on earlier in the season, but they've really turned things around of late for the last several weeks. The Pats obviously have a great defense. They're second in DVOA, defensive DVOA. They both run the ball a ton. The Titans run the ball 46% of the time. The Pats 45% of the time. Both that's top 10 in the NFL. They both play slow. The Titans are 23rd in neutral situation pace of play. The Pats are 24th in neutral situation pace of play. So this is going to be a slow, methodical, run-heavy game. And the Titans are going to have no weapons. I'm not expecting A.J. Brown to suit up in this one. I know he had negative x-rays. But even if he does, they're just going to double him, give safety help over the top anyway. So you look at the games without Derrick Henry. For the Titans, 44 points against the Rams, 44 points against the Saints, 35 points against the Texans. Now, I realize two good defensive teams, but they'll have one here as well. And then the Texans game was, in the rain. But this is just a slow defensive game, Pat. I don't have good feeling on who's going to cover the 6.5 point spread. But it does strike me as just a game that's not going to, involve a ton of points here. A lot of running, slow. So 44 is not like a huge total or anything like that. It's on the lower side, but I do think this one comes under.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the side. I was going to ask which way, because I
stay
can't.
Away, man.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I've got New England in a survivor pool where I'm kind of limping along and don't have that many options left. But I don't feel great about them covering that big a spread, especially against a Titans team that's been kind of a giant slayer this year. So not that we consider the Patriots giants yet, but it's kind of interesting. I mean, they're playing so well.
Yeah.
And but yes, the formula for them playing so well is defense and ball control and, keeping everything sort of manageable. And Belichick is doing a great job with that. No surprise there. You mentioned that both teams are in the bottom 8 or bottom 9 as far as pace.
Yep.
I think the under is a pretty good play here.
Yeah. And again, something fluky can always happen, but this strikes me as a game. I'm going to be shocked, given just the injuries, especially for the Titans, if this game goes over. So I do like that. All right, let me recap very quickly. Pat, you like the Lions getting 3 against the Bears, the Raiders and the Cowboys under, we'll call it 50.5 right now. It was 51 earlier. And the Rams getting 1 from the Packers. I like the Steelers getting 4.5 from the Bengals, the Texans laying 2.5 to the Jets, and the Titans and the Pats under 44 points. So here's what I'd like to do now, Pat. Let's quickly run through the remaining spreads, talk about whether or not we have a lean one way or another, or we like any of them. Then let's get to some player props for the Thanksgiving game. Sound good to you?
Sounds great, Dan.
Dog under control?
He is. He's still gnawing very contentedly. So, and I think he would be for the next 4 hours if I let him.
Your dog is better than mine. So we said, Pat, that for the Cowboys laying 7.5 here on Thanksgiving, that's just a stay away for you. You think the Cowboys win, but you don't confidently feel it's going to be by 7.5 points.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with you. Again, this is a spot where I tease them down. If you can find a teaser piece. Again, I've done it in the same game and I've teased the total up, but I've also done it with the Steelers getting 4.5, moving that up to 10.5. So that's also where I'd go. How about the Bills? This spread is moving here, Pat. It was 6. It was 4 originally. My guess is because the running back injuries, maybe, I don't know, or maybe money's coming in here on the Bills. It's moved to 6. Now it's 6.5 as of this moment for the consensus spread. That's a big number. I do think the Bills win this game, Pat, but 6.5 against the Saints in New Orleans, I don't know, feels like something I might want to avoid.
I'm probably going to play the Bills for maybe a 1-unit play here. I don't know if we can still call the Bills defense great after what Jonathan Taylor did to them last week, but this is still a really good, put it this way, I don't know how this New Orleans offense is going to move the ball against the Bills. Dan, It just seems like not only having Trevor Siemian at quarterback, likely not having Alvin Kamara, and perhaps not Mark Ingram at running back either, but no Ryan Ramczyk at right tackle. I mean, he didn't practice again yesterday. Terran Armstead, I think, got a limited practice in. That would help. But if Armstead and Ramczyk were both out against the Bills, it would be pretty hopeless. So I have to take the Bills in this. And plus, you have to know they're going to be smarting after what the Colts did to them last week. Pretty much just embarrassed them. So, I don't know what Sean Payton could possibly have up his sleeve to get more than 17, 20 points on the board this week against Buffalo.
Can you explain to me, Pat, why they don't go to Taysom Hill and just try something different? They went to him last year when we were all like, what are you doing?
Right.
Why they won't go to him this year? And especially after that big extension, right? Which is weird, obviously, the extension, but still, why not make that switch, especially in this game?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, looking at the numbers, they haven't been that awful for Simeon, at least not in the first 2 games, but it's all been garbage time.
It's all garbage time.
He's doing everything in the fourth quarter after the Saints are hopelessly out of it. So, and you give Taysom Hill all this money to just be the, and I'm totally getting ahead of myself here, Dan. It's why I kind of like Taysom Hill as an anytime touchdown back.
Oh, all right. Well, all right. We're going to get there.
Right.
That's good. Yeah. I love it. All right. Let's go to the Falcons on the road against the Jaguars. Falcons laying 1. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to put a little something on Jacksonville in this game because I think Jacksonville has actually an NFL caliber, credible defense, and Atlanta is just even coming off I don't like betting against teams coming off bad, embarrassing losses. If they're good enough to do something about it. I don't think Atlanta is good enough to do something about it.
All right. It's a stay away from me. But I do think that I might go with the Falcons if I had to go somewhere. It depends on if Cordero Patterson is back for this one, which obviously we need to wait and see. Because without it, forget about it. Their offense looks lost. Yeah. But I just can't back the Jaguars. I don't care whether or not all the sort of metrics say I should back the Jaguars, which basically does say every single game. I just can't do it with Urban Meyer. Interesting one here, Pat. Bucks visiting the Colts. Laying 3. I mean, Colts coming off that giant win against Buffalo. What do you think?
Yeah, this is where I start to sound like a broken record, Dan, saying that I don't have a lean on
Nope.
either of these games. And, it's a betting podcast, and like saying that you don't have a lean on a lot of games is kind of a bad way to go about doing things. But I really don't. I mean, the line seems pretty spot on. If I were going to bet this game at all, I would probably go with the home dog here. But, with Tampa coming off the Monday nighter, sort of a short work week. Presumably they're getting a little extra time off for the holidays too. But I don't have a strong lean in this one.
So I want to make it clear, in my opinion, at least if you're on a betting podcast, there is nothing wrong with saying you don't have a lean on something, because as much as people might want to bet every single game, and we have a guest who's come on the show, Ian McMillan, who is doing just that this entire year. God bless him. But that's not what we do. Like, we pick our spots, and I agree with you. I actually have no feel for this game. I have no idea how this game is going to play out. The Bucs have been a little disappointing, and I know they beat up on the Giants, but I'm not really taking anything from that. And the Colts have been playing extremely, extremely well. Now, it does sound like Vita Vea may come back in this one, Pat, and that's going to be the irresistible force meets the immovable object over there with Jonathan Taylor. But it's something where I'm going to watch the game. I'm going to enjoy it. Watch the game without any sort of betting. I'm not going to watch this one, but I probably am going to also sit out from a betting perspective. That's the Panthers visiting the Dolphins. And the Panthers are laying now 1.5. I think it was 1 earlier when Joe and I looked at it. So any thoughts on that?
No, another one where I pretty much just threw my hands up. In a pool where we have to pick every game against the spread, I took Carolina. Just thinking they maybe keep the Cam Newton mojo rolling. But, that's about all I could pin anything on. And it just didn't feel like a real confident pick.
Yeah, I would go with the Panthers if I had to go somewhere. I don't, thankfully. I would, just because of the defense. They are still, again, that 7th playoff spot in the NFC is going. It's really made things fun because every team is basically involved in it. And obviously the Panthers have gone all in on this season, given the trade for Gilmore and everything they're sort of doing. And I think the defense is going to be enough here to have them eke out a win. And at 1.5, I would go there. But again, not somewhere I want to go if I can avoid it. We talked already about the Jets and the Texans are laying 2.5 points. I will say, again, I see a couple of threes at PointsBet and FoxBet. Again, I don't like it there, but the consensus line at BettingPros is 2.5. That is where I would go. The Pats are laying the 6.5 to the Titans. We both agreed it's just a game that we kind of want to stay away from entirely, other than the total.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Very good. The Eagles, Pat, are visiting the Giants, laying 3.5 here. I think it was 3 when it opened up. After the game on Monday night, it went to 3.5. What do you think? Eagles are rolling. Giants look like in disarray, but it's a divisional game. Seems too easy to pick the Eagles almost.
It does seem too easy, and it feels like I'm walking into a snare trap here, Dan. But so maybe I'll be hanging upside down by my feet after I bet the Eagles on this one. But that's kind of it. Momentum. I mean, the Eagles they've been getting it done with this bizarrely conservative game plan. I mean, it's totally working. They're playing Ravens ball basically, and it's worked very well for them. Their defense is credible, and the Giants just look completely lost on offense on Monday night. It's worrisome. And how soon can they circle the wagons after getting rid of Jason Garrett? Jason Garrett may cure some ailments, but not everyone. And Daniel Jones just looked terrible on Monday night. My goodness. So I'm gonna take the Eagles here, even though it feels suspect, like I am walking into a dark alley.
For certain, if I had to go one way, it would be the Eagles. But it definitely just feels like the books are saying, "Go ahead, take the Eagles." You want to take the Eagles, take the Eagles. And that always scares me a little bit, enough where I will second guess it. But again, if I'm in a pool like yours where I have to go somewhere, I've got to go with the Eagles. But again, divisional game, home dog, seems too easy. It gets me a little worried with it. But yeah, I would go that way if I had to, just because that seems right. I mentioned, Pat, the Broncos and the Chargers. The spread is 2.5 here with the Broncos as home dogs. Any lean at all on this game?
Ever so slightly to the home dog with the Broncos, but not one that I'm probably going to play. I think that's just who I picked in that pool.
Yep, I agree. had to pick it, I'd still go Broncos 2.5, but below 3, it's a game I want to stay away from. Vikings are visiting the 49ers. The consensus line is 3. Oddly enough, my book is at 3.5 on DraftKings, which usually I always feel like the spot I'd want to go is always on the other way with DraftKings. They're always, I feel like, a little sharper than what I want. But at 3.5, that's mildly intriguing there with the Vikings. But what do you think about it at 3?
That half point would make a world of difference, considering that every game the Vikings play is a,
one possession game.
Yeah, I've got
basically
some friends up in Minnesota who have had years taken off their lives by this Viking season so far.
Yeah.
And getting the hook there would be fantastic. I'm hoping I can find it somewhere because I'd like to bet the Vikings at 3.5. At 3, I'll be a little less enthusiastic, may put a little something on them anyway, though.
Yeah, I do think it's worth it. And again, Kyle Shanahan, he's a little Mike Tomlin-y. You kind of want to back him as a dog and maybe not so much as a favorite in this one. So yeah, it is heart attack season. And again, that's basically it. There are a couple of random strays out there at 3.5 with DraftKings, but for the most part, it's at 3. So yeah, if you got 3.5, I'd be willing to go with the Vikings. I'll probably stay away from it just because, man, I hate backing Kirk Cousins. It makes my heart hurt. Ravens are at home here, Pat, against the Browns. Consensus line is 3.5. BetMGM is at 4, our sponsor, but it's at 3.5 for the most part out there. Weird game, Pat. I mean, you've got Kareem Hunt was just designated to return from IR, as was Jack Conklin. Don't know whether or not they're going to be able to suit up here. You've got the illness concerns for the Ravens with Lamar Jackson and Marquise Brown. I don't know, Pat. Home, Ravens, laying 3.5.
Well, I'm in that pool, Dan, where Michael Beller's pool, where we 32 of us are drawn teams before the season and have to bet that team against the spread every week. And I drew the Ravens this week, clipping along at 4-6 with them. So whatever I pick for this game, you probably want to go the opposite way. And a game that I will not be betting myself, but I did pick the Ravens at home. I always have a hard time going against the Ravens at home. And that's kind of hurt me. I don't think they're great ATS in home games this year. So, yeah, and I mean, it is worrisome that Cleveland is getting healthier again. I mean, Conklin would be a big deal for them, and Hunt too. I mean, to give them that 2-headed attack, which they need because their passing game is not very potent. So a slight lean towards the Ravens here, but certainly not a recommendation to all of our friends out there.
And again, designated to return doesn't mean, of course, that they're going to come back this week necessarily. It just means that the practice, 21-day window is open. So hopefully they get back. Alex L., who is here with us, is asking, what do you think about the total, Pat? He likes the under. It's 45 right now. Now, what's interesting, Pat, is this is all over the place from what I can see. And my guess is it's because of the health considerations. 45 is consensus, but it's all the way up to 46.5 at BetMGM. It's at 46 at FanDuel. It's 45 at DraftKings. So it's a little all over the place right now. Consensus at 45, but you can talk about it if you wanted. 46.5. Any lean on that?
Yeah, we also have to take over-unders for tiebreaker purposes in that pool. And I did take the under in this. So I'm with Alex on that one.
Way to go, Alex. And yeah, I'd be inclined to agree just because of the, how the Browns offense is playing right now and the Ravens sort of being a little up and down. And again, they run the ball a lot, even if it's less than previous seasons. Last one, Monday Night Football. If you bet this game, you are an incredible human. The Seahawks are getting one in Washington right now. Any thoughts on it whatsoever, Pat?
No, I completely threw my hands up in the air when I saw the line on this one, Dan. I might have actually flipped a coin to make a pick in that point spread pool I'm in.
This is correct. I like it. Okay, there you go. Let's get to some props, Pat. So here's what you can do, by the way, guys. If you are here with us, if you're listening to this, you hopefully know this right now if you follow us, but at BettingPros, we have the prop bet cheat sheet, okay? What that does is it compares the available lines in the market to consensus projections, which we have, and it sort of recommends based on the differences between the two. It's a great way just to frame it. You can sort by game, you can sort by player, you can sort by stat, whatever you want to do. So it's a really good way to do it. Pat, let's start with the first game. Chicago against Detroit. Do you have a player prop that you are eyeing in this game?
Yeah, so Darnell Mooney over 56.5 is pretty compelling, considering that he got 16 targets with Allen Robinson out last week. Not sure if we've gotten definitive word on Robinson, but I suspect he is going to be out again.
Yep. If he's in, does that matter to you, by the way? Because I don't think it would for me. I think I'd still take the over on it.
Yeah, I mean, like, is he that much more of a threat to Mooney's target load than Marquise Goodwin is? Probably not. So, yeah, I just, plus we know that the Detroit secondary isn't good. They haven't given up a lot of passing yards simply because it's really easy to move the ball on them on the ground. But I still like Mooney as sort of the de facto alpha receiver here. 56.5 seems like kind of a low bar to clear. So that's my first one in this game.
I do love it. And actually what I'm doing, Pat, is for fantasy purposes, I do projections for every fantasy relevant player. Again, these are very early projections, which I refine throughout the week. And again, this is Thursday game, so I am just looking it up. I will say that on our prop bet cheat sheet, it shows you what the best available book is for these prop. And actually at FanDuel, it's 55.5. So you can get a little bit extra even on that, as opposed to 56.5. But I am right there with you. I am looking what I have him projected at, and I have him projected at 63.2 receiving yards, Pat. So there you go. We are there with the over. Very good. And again, I've mentioned this, but Pat is basically probably the most accurate fantasy ranker for like a decade. So you have a pretty good bet here on player props. All right. Any other ones that you're eyeing in this game, Pat, that you like one way or another on it? Before I give a couple, I guess I can go through. Go ahead.
Generally, I'm not a big anytime TD better. I think you don't get great odds generally, but because this is going to be such an unsightly game, and because I need action to make it interesting to me, Dan,
yes.
and so I have something to watch instead of talking to my family on Thanksgiving. I think I'm going to take the anytime TD on Cole Kmet at plus 300.
Yes.
And I just, again, sort of paucity of target options for the Bears with Robinson out, and Kmet is that big body when they get close to the end zone. And then this is a fade of the Bears offense. I like an anytime Lions defensive touchdown at plus 650.
Oh, wow.
I could very much see a pick six, a fumble recovery, something. So, plus 650. I'm not confidently predicting one by any means, but I kind of like those odds, and I'm going to put a little something down on that.
All right. I like it. All right. Getting a little crazy here. I will say that Alex L., who's also here again, a bunch of people are here with us asking about stuff. He did ask earlier on the Cole Kmet, so you like the touchdown, but he did ask on the receiving yards, which I'm looking at right now, looks like 35.5. I think betting Cole Kmet receiving yards, Pat, is something that's too scary for me to really go near, even though the projection, again, on our prop bet cheat sheet does have him for 40, I believe, 40.79. So would clear that number. But what do you think? Any lean on that?
I kind of like it. Again, I think I'm limited number of target options for the Bears against a pretty soft defense. So I do kind of like it.
Okay. So I do too. So I do want to ask about the running backs, Pat, because I do think that running backs are sort of where it's at. The line keeps moving up, by the way. And the one thing with player prop lines, Pat, is they move quickly. I mean, at least as far as what I can see, right? There are a lot of times I like a line, I look and it's like 4 or 5 yards different the next morning when I look. Montgomery has a huge line right now, Pat. And of course, he torched the Lions in their first game sort of early on, but it's 80.5 is the total. That's like, I would love to find a way to take the over on a David Montgomery rushing yards prop, but that line is I don't want to go under because I do think there's a scenario where they just run all day, but I got to stay away from that one. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that gives me pause, like I thought that was looking like an under two, is that the Lions have been a massive run funnel defense this year, and opponents are running against them on basically 50% of their offensive snaps. So, and presumably the Bears with Andy Dalton at quarterback have incentive to be run heavy themselves. So, plus now that Montgomery's been back for a little bit, I think they might feel a little bit more comfortable giving him 22, 23 carries in this one. So it's a stay away, but yeah, that is I definitely raised an eyebrow myself when I saw that number.
I can tell you one that I like here. If we look on the other side of the running backs, now I probably don't love it enough to go crazy with it or anything like that. But, DeAndre Swift is at 65.5 rushing yards. The Bears aren't that great necessarily against the run. They've got injuries, of course, with their run stuffers here. And we've seen it now with Dan Campbell, Pat. We talked about in the fantasy show. I know he only got, I believe, 14 carries in this last game. But obviously, they're going to commit to the run, not as much of the passing downs work here for DeAndre Swift through the air, but a lot on the ground. That's what they want to do. In a game where the spread is 3, you have to assume that Swift is probably going to see upwards of 15 carries here in this game, so long as he stays healthy. Jamal Williams didn't factor in that much. So I kind of lean the over here at 65.5 for his rushing yards. What do you think of that?
Yeah, you may have talked me into that. And we have
Yeah.
seen this abrupt shift from sort of the Alvin Kamara type usage. Well, actually, the shift has kind of mirrored the Alvin Kamara usage from last year, where it was, doing significant damage as a pass catcher and sort of limited to maybe 12 to 15 carries a game, to the Alvin Kamara of early this year, where he was just getting these massive 20, 25 carry games and not so much usage in the passing game. That's how things have moved with Swift too. And, that Steelers game where he had 33 carries
Yep.
last week over 20. The way things have been trending, I do think the over there is a pretty good looking play.
I mean, it does seem pretty clear when the game is close, Pat, they're going to try to lean into the run, as they probably should, because they've got absolutely nothing going on in the passing game.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's one that I was really eyeing, the over 65.5 for DeAndre Swift. All right, let's get to the Raiders visiting Dallas. Any props that you were eyeing in this one?
Yeah, just one. And it's sort of a strange one, but I sort of like Josh Jacobs over 20.5 receiving yards.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for a guy
recent games, Pat. I mean, recent games have sort of, he's been heavily involved in the passing game.
He has his last 5 games, the receiving yardage, 29, 39, 19, 20, and 24. So he's beat it 3 out of 5 games, and the 2 misses were by 1.5 and half a point. No Henry Ruggs. They've got to go somewhere with the ball here.
Yeah.
And maybe more important, Jalen Richard was a healthy scratch last week.
Mm-hmm.
That might be one of those where I wait to bet this until I see the inactives and see whether Jalen Richard is active. But they have made more of a concerted effort post Gruden, it seems like, to get Jacobs back involved in the passing game. And we know he has the skill set to do it.
Right.
I mean, that's been kind of dismaying for these Josh Jacobs investors in fantasy, that he's just been this between the tackles sledgehammer and has not been allowed to show off the versatility we know he has.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like, the defensive philosophy right now is take away Darren Waller. And, if you got to go underneath, do it.
Yeah.
But they'll let that happen. Yeah. You know what, Pat? I didn't even think about it. And I think that that's a good one. Talk me into it. I love it. Okay, that is a good one. By the way, I will say, just if you're here and you ask a question, I'm going to put it up. This is a big one, Pat, for the last game that we missed. Michael Fuller wants to know whether we like at plus money Kyra Santos over 1.5 field goals on DraftKings. Look, you get plus money. I'm okay with it. You're indoors. It's fine with me. You really, really got to love betting props if you are going in here and betting over-unders on field goals made. But any thoughts on that, Pat?
Michael he might be on to something here, because I mean, are we going to bet on Andy Dalton to convert touchdowns when they get it into the red zone? Like, I'm tending to fade Andy Dalton in those situations. So yeah, plus we know the weather's not going to be a factor. I'm kind of he might have talked me into that one.
I like that one, actually. I hadn't thought about it whatsoever, Michael. If I'm being honest, I did not consider kicker props. But yeah, you know what? And on DraftKings, I'm gonna trail you with that, Michael. So make sure to hit us up on Twitter if we hit that one, because I do like it. You're right, in a controlled environment. And yeah, receiving yards for Jacobs on FanDuel, it's 19.5. Pat, what is that the line that you saw as well, or do you have a worse line? That
I don't have it in front of me, Dan. Sorry.
Oh, okay. No. Whatever your line was. That's why I didn't know what you took the over at.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Jacobs line.
Oh, the Jacobs line, 20 and a
So,
half.
yeah. So it's
Sorry. I
19
thought you
and a
were
half.
talking about the Santos line. My bad.
Now, if I thought you had the Santos line at your disposal, Pat, you would be the regular co-host of this podcast because I don't know too many people who have it. I was not expecting that. No, I meant the Josh Jacobs line again, because what on the prop bet cheat sheet, what it shows you is the best available line in the market per book. So at FanDuel, it's actually 19 and a half. So that's even better if you can bet on FanDuel, even a little bit more of an edge.
Yeah.
Anything else? Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead, Pat.
Let me add one more, Dan. And I
Yeah.
know that our the betting sheet loves this one, is the Derek Carr over 268 and a half. It just seems kind of low. I mean, he's 6-4 against that number this year. Maybe it's because he's 0-2 on his last two. The weird thing is, wait, what did I say? I said 268 and a half. That's what it was at yesterday on DraftKings. Now it's down to 264 and a half.
It's
When I checked this
263.
morning.
It's 263 and a half on FanDuel.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So it's moved down 5 yards since. Now that worries
And again,
me a little
Pat,
bit.
that's not unusual. I mean, you and I bet props a lot, and I take a pretty close look at them now when I get into it, because I have to recommend them always on Sunday night. I will recommend things on Saturday night, Pat. On Saturday night, I will make my list for our Sunday morning live stream, and it will move 4 yards for running backs, like 6 yards for passing yards. Like, they move pretty significantly.
Right.
Like,
It
this.
doesn't take a lot to move these lines. Right?
Not at all. Not at all. So all right. So yeah, our prop bet cheat sheet, that is the one that they like a lot. They have them projected for 294. So you agree with this? Let me pull up because Pat, I don't know, man. The Raiders offense scares me, man, with the passing offense a little bit. Let me look at my projections, but tell me why you like that one.
Well, it's just because it's a low bar for a guy who, I mean, Carr is top. I know he's top 5 in passing yards per game. At one point, I think he was number 2. I don't know if he's still there after 2 kind of slowish games, but yeah, I mean, we know they're not gonna. They don't have the running game to just lean on the run the entire game against the Cowboys. Like they've got to take to the air here, and even though they don't have that vertical threat with Ruggs no longer in the lineup, I still think Carr can get there. And plus we talked about the Raiders being, deserved underdogs in this game.
Yeah.
So we are guessing that it's probably going to be a pass-friendly game script.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think that the fact that they're, I want to take a rushing prop over for the Cowboys for one of them, but it's Zeke's so banged. I mean, his rushing 60 and a half, Pat? I feel like that's an over, but I don't feel good about his health. Like, I feel like he's always constantly leaving. He obviously had a little bit of an ankle thing last time and he came in. So I could see Tony Pollard going over his 39 and a half, but I don't feel that comfortable with it overall. Do you?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, as you mentioned, it does feel like we should be taking some sort of over on the Cowboys rushing props. And it just, but I can't do it on Zeke knowing he's banged up.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Any other one from this game, or you want to move to the final one?
Yeah, let's go to the final one.
Bills at the Saints. What do you like here, Pat?
I like that Taysom Hill anytime touchdown, and at plus 500. And especially with the uncertain injury status of Kamara and Ingram. Just one way for them to punch the ball in, perhaps. Really, that's about it. I'm not loving the props in this game.
Yeah, that's a great one. Actually, I really, really like that one. The one that I'm eyeing a little bit, and again, our prop bet cheat sheet does not list this as great. It basically has it right on projections. I lean over on Josh Allen rushing yards. And part of it is it's 32 and a half right now. And part of the reason why I do, Pat, is because, you hear all this coming out of Buffalo. And they're like, you know what, we got to take care of it. Like, we don't have to go crazy. We don't have to take deep shots. Like, we have to avoid turnovers, especially against the Saints that don't have an explosive offense. To me, that strikes me as when Allen feels like he is in trouble or he feels like it's a tight window, he's not going to take the chance in this game. He's just going to take off and run. We just saw Jalen Hurts absolutely destroy the Saints, right, from a rushing perspective. So again, it's not one that our prop bet cheat sheet necessarily likes. It doesn't have an edge. It has over by 0.06 rushing yards, which is fine. But I lean that way, Pat. Taysom Hill scoring a touchdown actually is a great call. And it's now my favorite prop of that game. But I do lean, if anything, Josh Allen over rushing yards, 32 and a half.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, especially after the Jalen Hurts blow up last week.
Yeah, I think just everything sort of fits for it. All right, that's it for our Best Bets podcast. Pat, your dog was great. Thank him for keeping it up. Thank you for taking the time.
Theo.
Good job, Theo. I know it's a very busy time for you. Thank you, everybody, to joined us here today live again on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe to youtube.com/bettingpros. Make sure you don't miss our content. And then go, by the way, to bettingpros.com/helmet, where you can win a signed Saquon Barkley helmet just for subscribing. Just to recap our best bets in addition to the props. Pat, you like the Lions getting 3 from the Bears, the Raiders and the Cowboys under 50.5, and the Rams getting 1 from the Packers. I like the Steelers getting 4.5 from the Bengals in Cincinnati, the Texans laying 2.5 to the Jets, and the Titans and the Patriots under 44. I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy the food, enjoy the family, enjoy the football, enjoy your Sunday as well. We'll be back, as always, next week, taking an early look at the Week 13 NFL lines as we just fly through the season. I will talk to you then.